B1 family, welcome to Black Logic. And this evening, we're going to talk about cultural appropriation. We understand essentially stemming from the Olympics or damn near from the dawn of time, our culture has always been appropriated by other groups, and they have been benefiting greatly from our culture, whether it be in fashion, the trend of wearing traditional Black American attire and the way that we style our clothing, high profile events. It often ignores the cultural significance behind these garments. Designers sometimes take these styles without crediting the original culture, making a profit while the creators receive little to nothing. In the art world, we've seen countless instances where Black artist styles are mimicked or appropriated by others who gain fame and success, all the while the original creators remain unrecognized. These examples highlight not just the emotional toil of appropriation, but also the ongoing struggles that Black creators face in fighting for our rights and recognitions in a world that often overlooks our contributions. Foundational Black Americans, U.S. freedmen, are some of the most influential, if not the most influential people in the world. Because when we look at certain things, family, when we look at, take for instance, the Olympics and the creation of breakdancing, also known as breaking, and we see the travesty of events like this. Fair use, and I'll play some of this. Now we know, family, that this young lady here, Australian doctor or Australian breakdancing doctor, she received 0 points. We don't know exactly what she was doing except rolling around on the floor and trying to mimic breakdancing. And some of the things that you will hear coming out of certain communities, coming from mass media, of how breakdancing was invented, because breakdancing is part of hip hop. Okay, and hip hop has five elements, and breakdancing is one of them. And we'll get around to that, family, because they would like to appropriate our culture and state that other people assisted Black Americans 50-50 in creating breakdancing, which is now at the Olympic stage. And let me tell you, there was a Asian Canadian who won the gold medal for the men's, and there was a Black Frenchman who won silver. And I believe that Jeffro, who was a Black American, I think he won bronze. Correct me if I'm wrong, family, but nonetheless, they have taken, especially Asians, and appropriated this culture and are now benefiting from it, something that we created a very long time ago. And this is something that not just breakdancing, that cultural appropriation happens across all sectors, and something that we really need to define and something that we truly need to call out. So I guess one of the questions is, how does the dominant society appropriate culture on a mass media level, as far as people appropriating in their small little groups, their little non-secular groups, where it becomes very popularized, where people take on our culture? And this is similar to, or this is maybe a reflection of how they go about it. Breakdancing, also known as breaking or b-boying or girl, I forgot the terminology when they used for the women. Excuse me. They will state that it wasn't invented by a single person, but rather evolved from a mix of cultural influences and creative contribution from various individuals and communities. That's how they do it. They say communities and not community. Now we understand that b-boying particularly was created in the Bronx in New York City during the late 1960s, early 1970s, and it emerged as part of the broader hip hop culture, which includes DJing. We're talking about these five elements of hip hop: DJing, MCing, rapping, and graffiti, and of course, b-boying. Now, they will go into a whole dialogue that the roots of breakdancing can be traced back to Black American and Puerto Rican youth who were influenced by a variety of dance styles. Now, we've had many New Yorkers who were during that time, like Crazy Legs, who came out and stated that there were no Puerto Ricans breakdancing, right? They came later, saw these guys breakdancing and thought it was cool and wanted to be part of this whole new dancing style. And a lot of the influence that Crazy Legs and other foundational Black Americans was inspired by, they were inspired by James Brown, most likely the good foot dance, also martial art moves and gymnastics. If you saw the Olympics, a lot of these things that these men and women are doing, this is highly gymnastic. These are martial art moves. And this was inspired, we can date it back to James Brown. And of course, DJ Kool Herc often gets credit as one of the pioneers of hip hop, but not the creator. But in some essence, people will say that he played a crucial role by extending the break beats in his music, which gave dancers more time to showcase their moves, making the song longer. And this period of music became known as the break, hence the term break dancing. This is how they put things together. This is how they word things in order to make it sound more legitimate. They give it semi-legitimacy and intellectual prowess to a point to solidify their stance that this was created not just by Black Americans. And they will go on to state that, you know, as the dance from developed, individuals like Crazy Leg from the Rocksteady crew, among others, and these became iconic figures in popularizing breakdancing, that these early B-boys and B-girls contributed to the dance-growing vocabulary of moves and styles, and that it made it an integral part of the hip-hop movement. This is how we gravitate and merge into cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation. We understand that this is the act of adopting or using elements of one culture by members of another culture, typically when the culture being borrowed from is marginalized or oppressed. And the cultural borrowing, the elements hold more social, economic, or political power. This is why Kamala Harris will get a Meg Thee Stallion to go into or front a pep rally or a political rally and galvanize the Black vote while she twerks on stage. Because this includes the use of symbols, clothing, language, music, hairstyles, rituals, or other cultural expressions. And a lot more times than not, Black people were excluded from white organizations or white adjacent organizations, non-Black organizations, so we created our own. Now, the controversy surrounding cultural appropriation family arises when these elements are taken out of their original context. It's stripped out of the cultural significance or used in a way that disrespects or commodifies the culture they originate from, like hip hop, like rap. Rap was a music of revolution. Rap was a music of rebellion, not a music of degeneracy, not a music of violence on our own people. But we have to look at these things because cultural appropriation is particularly problematic when appropriating cultural benefits from the use of these elements while the original culture is marginalized or dismissed for the same practices. For example, with elements of Black culture like hairstyles. Like hairstyles, family. We know when certain people get hairstyles, like a Kim Kardashian, right? When we wear braids, oh, look at this wild hair. Look at this jungle hair. Look at this untamed hair. Look at these snakes in someone's hair. Look at Medusa. We have all of these discouraging terms, but when someone of non-Black culture wear, oh, this is very beautiful. Look at this unique hairstyle. Look at this one-of-a-kind hairstyle. When it comes to music or fashion that are adopted by non-Black people in ways that are celebrated, while Black people are often stigmatized or discriminated against for the same cultural expressions, it highlights the power dynamics at play in cultural appropriation. It's just not about borrowing or sharing. It's about the unequal exchange and the lack of respect or recognition given to the originating culture. That is what this is about, family. That's what this is about. Cultural appropriation is a real thing. Because when we start with the music industry, family, we really have to look at rock and roll. We have to look at country. And when we talk about rock and roll, we're talking about Chuck Berry, right? We all know that rock and roll was birthed by Black artists like Chuck Berry, right? As well as Little Richard. You guys know Little Richard. Also, one of our sister Rosetta Tharpe. Yeah, family, these are the founding fathers of rock and roll. But what happened when Elvis Presley came on the scene? He was held as the king of rock and roll before Chuck Berry, before Little Richard, before Sister Rosetta Tharpe. And unfortunately, because Black people don't know our own history, we contributed to the recognition of Elvis Presley and the king of rock and roll. Meanwhile, the Black artists who created the very foundation that rock and roll stood on were pushed to the margin, struggling to get radio play or recognition. They just played Elvis because Elvis Presley made millions of dollars. They got crumbs. And it doesn't stop there. Hip hop, a genre that was born in the Bronx, created by Black youth to express the struggles, the joys, and the realities of their community. And it has been commodified and sanitized by corporations to sell to the masses. Now you got brands paying millions to artists who have no connection to the culture. They not like us. While the originators of breakdancing, DJing, and graffiti are often forgot or barely scraping by. Remember when our beautiful Black sisters were ridiculed for wearing cornrows or afros? They were labeled unprofessional and or ghetto. Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were. That's what they were labeled. But when a Kim Kardashian rocks cornrows, it's suddenly a trend. It's the new hotness. This is the fad. These same styles born from our cultural heritage are being monetized by high-end fashion brands without giving a damn about the people who created them. They're turned our culture into a costume, something to be worn for profit, then discarded when it's no longer profitable. Because you know how many white women, you know how many Middle Eastern women ran to the stylists of Kim Kardashian when they got their plaits and cornrows and extensions and etc. And we can go a little bit further, family. We can even go to twerking. Now, yes, twerking has its roots in West African dance, and it was popularized by Black American culture long before Miley Cyrus decided to co-opt it on stage. Suddenly, twerking was on every magazine cover and commercial, but where was the credit to the Black women who have been dancing that way for generations? Where were their sponsorship, their deals? Oh, right, yeah. They were too busy being hypersexualized and criticized. But when you have other groups, like the Canadian Paul Vaulter, Ms. Newman defends twerking after winning bronze at the 2024 Paris Olympics. They had this whole white girl up here at the world stage from Canada up here twerking with all of her bones. Cultural appropriation. But it's not just about the entertainment. This theft extends to the very inventions that have changed the world. Black inventors like Gerd Morgan, who created the traffic light, or Louis Latimer. We're talking about all of these people, family. Our brother Gerd Morgan, all the inventions he had, Alexander Miles. You see how beautiful, black, intelligent, and all the wonderful things that we have done. But if you never know your history or know a piece of the wonderful things, how we have contributed to society, to the world as we know it, like Louis Latimer, who improved the light bulb, but essentially without the filament of the light bulb, there will be no light. So essentially he created the light bulb. We had our contributions erased or overshadowed. How many people know their names compared to Thomas Edison? Thomas Edison, he gives all the recognition of the light bulb, and he wasn't even an inventor. People would like to tell you that Thomas Edison was an inventor. He was not. He was the investor. He was a businessman, but he took the credit. See, our inventions, the fruits of our intellectual labor, have been taken, repackaged, and sold without us seeing a dime of wealth that they generate. Let's be real. This isn't just about cultural exchange. It's about power dynamics. It's about power dynamics, is it not? When a dominant group takes from a marginalized group like Foundational Black Americans and profits off it without acknowledgement or compensation, that's exportation. It's theft. And it's been happening to Black Americans for centuries. And we cannot forget the media's role in all of this. The media has been complicit in erasing Black contributions while elevating others who appropriate our culture. When you see breakdancing, you don't even see Black people no more, even though there's still foundational Black Americans who are breakdancing. Tell me the group you most likely see breakdancing. Don't worry, I already know. Asians. And don't get me wrong, I've seen Asian breakdancers. They're really good. As a matter of fact, the Canadian Asian breakdancer won gold at the Olympics. He was really good. Now, we have to know that it's no coincidence that when a white artist sings a soul song, is labeled a groundbreaking. But when a Black artist does the same, it's regulated to the urban category. Kind of like they did Beyonce. Even though their Black folk had created country, when Beyonce did a country album, it wasn't accepted by the dominant society. Even though she topped the charts, they try to generalize it as pop. They try to generalize it as R&B. She's like, no, it's country. See, that's how the narrative gets twisted, how our culture gets stolen right out from under us while the world watches. Or the world, there's no innocent people here. The world contributes to the acceptance of other people robbing us of our culture and benefiting from it. So I know. No victimization here. So what do? First, we do exactly what I'm doing right here, right now. We call it out every time we see it. We demand recognition for our contribution. Shout out goes to our brother, Tariq Nasheed, for Microphone Check. Very powerful documentary that he did on hip hop. Also, we need to support our Black-owned businesses, our Black artists, our Black inventors. We refuse to let others profit from our culture while we're left struggling. And most importantly, we need to educate ourselves and each other so the next generation knows exactly where these art forms, these inventions, and these styles come from. We need to reclaim what's ours, family. We've been the very backbone and foundation of American culture, not this Black culture, American culture. Who invented, who created, who sewn the flag? that we all pledge allegiance to. It was a black woman. We've been the backbone of American culture since day one. And it's time we got the credit. It's time we got the compensation. This is what we deserve. This isn't just about respect. This is about justice. And a lot of times we can't let these things go, because going back to rock and roll with Chuck Berry and Little Richard and our sister Tharp. Anytime somebody thinks of rock and roll now, they're talking about Elvis Presley or the Beatles or maybe even a Led Zeppelin. But we know who laid the groundwork, family. These are the black musicians who crafted the sound, the style, the swagger that would define rock and roll. While white artists came along, took that sound, sanitized it, and sold it to the masses as something new. Just like jazz. They thought jazz was a passing phase. They thought jazz was jungle music until a Kenny G got into it, like, oh, it's sweet sounds of melody. Country music, need I go there? Don't even get me started, because the banjo, one of the key instruments in country music, has, believe it or not, African roots. It was brought to America by enslaved Africans, and the early sounds of country music were deeply influenced by the spirituals and folk songs sung by Black Americans in the South. But when you turn on country radio today, where's the representation of these roots? Instead, we get a whitewashed version of the genre that ignores its black origins, do we not? Artists like Charlie Pride and Ray Charles had to fight tooth and nail just to get recognized in a genre that their ancestors helped to create. And as we talked about all of these black inventors, all the intellectual stolen property that has been occurring, family. You got the stoplight with Gerd Morgan, the blood bank with Charles Drew, even pop to the light bulb, as I stated before, with Louis Latimer. These innovations were brought to life by black inventors, by black American inventors, by how many of these inventors got their due. How many of them saw their names erased, their contributions forgotten, their ideas stolen and patented by someone else? Because during slavery and Jim Crow, black people weren't even allowed to hold patents to some degree. There were some who got theirs, but what about the many lost inventions and the many stolen patents? So our inventions were often taken by white owners who claimed them as their own. The system was designed to rob us of our creations, of our intellectual contributions, and of our legacy. This is our culture. This is our lineage. And guess what? That legacy theft didn't stop when slavery ended. It's still happening today. It's still happening today. Look at the tech industry, the fashion world, even the culinary arts. See, black creativity gets co-opted and repackaged, and too often the world forgets where it came from. Oh, no. Hip hop was created by Puerto Ricans. What about black people? Oh, yeah, black people can rap real good. Black people rap real good. Wait a minute, didn't Eminem create rap? Didn't he create hip hop? Eminem? We was rapping back in the 60s. Remember the group called the Last Poets? And there were groups before the Last Poets, but the Last Poets were known as a poetry group that was stating poetry, which rap is poetry, over beats. But mass media has played a huge role in perpetuating these lies. They pushed the narrative that these art forms and innovations were collaborative, that they were created by a melting pot of different cultures, not just black people. Black people just didn't make nothing. It was a hit. It was the Puerto Ricans. It was the Asians. It was white people too. White people created country. White people created rock and roll. The Asians created break dance, and the Puerto Ricans. And the truth is that these were black creations, born out of the struggle, born out of pain, and most importantly, born out of our brilliance. It is really time that we reclaim that narrative. So, again, we need to educate ourselves. We need to speak out, and we need to never let them forget. Make sure that when our kids learn about hip hop, rock and roll, country music, and all the incredible inventions that change the world, they know who really made it happen. We make sure that the next time someone tries to tell us that these were collaborative efforts, we shut it down with facts. We shut it down with facts. We shut it down with the truth. Black culture is not up for grabs. It's time we take back what is ours. And that starts with the truth. That starts with the truth, family. I see my brother E. Hobbs in here, as well as Jermaine Anderson. Thank you guys for attending me this evening. E. Hobbs said, a great topic. It needs to be spoken about, brother. It needs to be spoken about because these folks, non-Black people, have been appropriating our culture in every sector. I thank you guys for tuning in. And if you found this enlightening, informative, hit that like button, share this video, and of course, drop a comment below on how reclaiming our culture is very important and significant, because it is. So, Black family, stay proud and stay powerful. Be one. And let's just see this one more time. Lord, Lord, have mercy. Gots to be more careful.